He writes music. He's in a band. He's going to play his own personal stuff right now on his acoustic guitar. But I'm going to turn it over to him. So thank you for your attention. Be nice and respectful. We can start playing. Or...
Yeah.
Be nice and respectful.
Don't worry about it. I'll run up to it. Easy.
What? Is that playing?
Sound
Is that
system.
recording?
We've got time for that. Well, guys, Cody said I write some music, do some songs, so I'm gonna play a few songs for you guys tonight, and if you like the stuff, I do have CDs if you guys want one for free. It's got 6 songs on it. It's gonna be they're just acoustic stuff, and yeah, this one here, I had a roommate of mine a couple of years ago, college. I'm still in college, but a couple of years ago lived with, and I thought that he was being two-faced to me, saying one thing to my face and then saying other stuff about me behind my back. So this song's kind of about that. Found out later that I was wrong, but I got, in my opinion, a cool song out of it, and it sounds like it's about a girl. It's not, so. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy.
So smooth, so quick winning with your tongue.
And basically, because that song, you know, and it talks about who you are is who I used to be, and you know, we all have selfishness. It's just part of our nature, and I used to be really bad about that, and I used to be a little two-faced, and it brought me down. And so, I mean, it's kind of what the song's about. A lot of my songs I try to write from personal experience, but make it something that everybody else can connect with. So I hope you guys can connect with this stuff. Maybe if not, maybe not now. Maybe one of these days you'll be able to remember it. So this one's called "A Ballad for the Brokenhearted," and the ballad is basically all music to an extent is like poetry to music, but ballads are more poetical in form. The rhyme scheme and stuff, but it's a song. And so I tried to write this as a ballad, and so it's called "Ballad for the Brokenhearted."
Hear the words of my song. Though you've been treated wrong, all hope is not gone. This is my ballad for the broken hearted, the victims of thieves. Courageous soldiers with their hearts on the line. Trust seems to get broken every time. Oh, I know what it feels like.
hearted. I know what it feels like to be hurt. And part of the reason I'm going to talk to you guys tonight because, believe it or not, I was your age at one point in time. Any guesses on how old I am now?
20s,
20s, that's correct.
27,
Not quite that high.
26,
Not quite.
24.
Yes. For another month. I'm almost 25. And I feel old. I was telling one of the girls, Allie? Found Allie earlier. She's 14. And I've got a sister who just turned 15 last week. I was telling her that I remember being you guys' age. And I remember what it was like. I've been through a lot. And I may look like I've got it all together. And, you see leaders, they may look like they have it all together. And we don't always. As we grow up, we're always learning new stuff. We're always learning. And life is it's a lifelong learning process. And so, I grew up in a home, I grew up in church. I'm sure, I don't know if any of you have, I'm sure some of you have. And so you're, always taught stuff about the Lord, about Jesus from the time I was a young kid. My dad was a worship leader in our church for a while. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. I have 3 younger sisters and a younger brother. I was homeschooled until 9th grade, and I went to a private school. And so that's a little bit of my background. So you guys know a little about me. Now I want to know something about some of you guys. So, who are you?
Kai Aaron Joey.
What's your name?
Kai Aaron Joey.
See, that's your name. It's not who you are. Who are you?
13-year-old girl.
That's what you are. It's not who you are. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?
Oh my God.
Huh?
I'm Hayden.
That's your name. Who are you?
I'm a liar.
You're a liar? Okay. All right. Now, is that the truth, though? Or are you lying? Because you just admitted that you're a liar, so how do I know to believe you?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, John 3, 1 through 3 talks a little bit. It's one of the first verses I want to use, the main verse tonight. It talks about who we are.
Poking at my feet. Sorry.
Talks about who we are as far as believers. And that's, I don't know where you guys stand on that, as far as for me, this kind of describes a little bit about who I am. And tonight I'm going to talk to you guys about identity. I want to talk to you about faith and what all that means and the application for it, how to apply it to your life. Because talking to you about identity and faith doesn't do you any good if you don't know what to do with it. So, John 3, 1 through 3 says, "See what kind of love the Father has given to us, that we should be called children of God. And so we are. The reason why the world does not know us is that it did not know Him. Beloved, we are God's children now, and what we will be has not yet appeared. But we know that when He appears, we shall be like Him, because we shall see Him as He is, and everyone who thus hopes in Him purifies himself as He is pure." So from this verse, what would this say, at least for me, that I am, based on this verse, these verses? Anybody?
I'm sorry, I can't
All right.
hold flips.
I'll read it again for you real quick. See, just John 3, 1 through 3. "See what kind of love the Father has given us, that we should be called children of God. And so we are. The reason why the world does not know us is that it did not know Him. Beloved, we are God's children now, and what we will be has not yet appeared. But we know that when He appears, we shall be like Him, because we shall see Him as He is, and everyone who thus hopes in Him purifies himself as He is pure." So, being one that follows Christ and lives for God, according to these verses, what would that make me?
The child of God.
Bingo. That's who I am. That is my identity. And furthermore, so now that I've identified, at least myself, as a child of God, what does that mean? How does that work out? Romans 8, 14 through 15 says, "For all who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God." So if you're led by the Spirit of God, you are a son of God, or a daughter of God. You're a child of God. And so, we ask, how does this happen? How do we do this? John 1:12 says, "But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God." And one of the important things that I want to point out here is that it says, "to all who receive." Because you can believe something, but just because you believe it doesn't mean you receive it. And you might even hear, you hear a lot of people that might even say, "Oh, I believe in God." That doesn't do anything. It doesn't matter. Satan believes in God. You think he has salvation? You think he's going to heaven?
No.
He believes in God. Is that good enough?
No.
No, you got to receive it. If I've got this tennis ball, you can all believe in it, but unless you have it, unless you've received it, you don't have it. But you can still believe in it. It's not just about believing. The Bible says, Jesus said, if you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord, you'll be saved. It's not just enough to believe it. And so, it's your identity. What is your identity in? There's a story about Jacob. Many of you all heard about Jacob in the Bible. Jacob and Esau, a couple of brothers. Well, Jacob had a lot of kids. And one of his wives' name was Rachel. And she was pregnant with his second son. And they were in the middle of traveling from Bethel to Ephrath. And you got to remember that back then they don't have cars, they don't have trains, they have boats, but it's all sail powered and man powered. They don't have the engines. So any of your modern transportation that we have now, they don't have. So you got to imagine a pregnant woman traveling. And so if she's traveling across the land, she's either going to be on the back of a camel, on the back of a horse, in a chariot or a carriage of some sort, or on foot. And have any of y'all ever seen a pregnant lady, or any of y'all have younger siblings?
Yeah.
So you know what it's like for a lady that's pregnant. And can you imagine a pregnant woman like that traveling? And Genesis 35:16-18, it talks a little bit about this. It says, "Then they journeyed from Bethel. When they were still some distance from Ephrath, Rachel went into labor, and she had hard labor. And when her labor was at its hardest, the midwife said to her, 'Do not fear, for you have another son.' And as her soul was departing, for she was dying, she called his name Ben-Oni, but his father called him Benjamin." So just to paint this picture a little bit more for you and give you a little bit more of an understanding, basically this is saying, okay, they're traveling, and on the side of the road, Rachel starts going into labor. Now, can you imagine seeing somebody walk down a dirt path, a pregnant lady, and all of a sudden she starts going into labor and having a baby? And then her nurse comes over and says, and it says that she had hard labor. It means it wasn't easy. And when her labor was at its hardest, when she was at the hardest moment, her midwife, which is the lady, the person that would be the wife that would be helping deliver the baby, says, "Do not fear, for you have another son." And so you've got this lady here on the side of the road, having a baby, in the middle of nowhere, and when she is at the most difficult point of the birthing process, her nurse says, "Oh, don't worry about it. You're having another baby. It's going to be, don't worry." And then it says, "As her soul was departing, for she was dying, she called his name Ben-Oni, but his father called him Benjamin." And so as she's dying, she ended up dying there on the side of the road when she had her son. And so this is not like just some lady having a baby that killed her. And it says that she called his name Ben-Oni, which Ben-Oni means son of my sorrow, or son of my trouble, or son of my pain. But his father called him Benjamin, which means son of my right hand and son of good fortune. And so it didn't matter what his mother named him. It was what his father called him that mattered. And his name was Benjamin. A lot of times people might call you names. They might say things about you. But that doesn't matter. What matters is what God says about you. Growing up, I don't know if any of you guys are computer people at all. But in high school, I was really big into computers. I still am. But I was doing a lot of web development and creating websites, starting to get into that, and actually doing coding. And there's something called HTML, or Hypertext Markup Language. And basically, it's the language that is used to write websites. Any website you look at, if you look at the code behind it, there's a code, a language that tells your web browser to display everything that you see. And most of the time, somebody went through and coded that stuff. And just like you learn English or Spanish or French or German or anything like that, it's a language. And so you can imagine me in 10th grade, 9th, 10th, 11th grade, carrying around books, 1,500-page books like this on hypertext markup language, HTML, while I'm in high school. And I've got a bowl cut. One of my buddies in high school called me Paul McCartney. And he said I look like one of the Beatles. I got to call Mop Top. I like to play sports, but I'm bad at them. I've always been really bad. So I was on the basketball team, and I never got any play time. I couldn't dribble. I could shoot sometimes. I wasn't really good at layups. And so I got made fun of all the time by sports guys. There was a guy that was on the football team and on the basketball team that went to my church, because I told you I went to a private school. And the private school that I went to also had a church connected with it. And so I went to school there, and that was also the church that I attended. And so one of the guys that I went to school with in my grade also went to the church, and a couple of times a week before school started at like 6 in the morning, we would have morning prayer. And usually it would just be the two of us. And we would go and we would pray together. And then as soon as we get done with that, we would go to school and we would go to homeroom and keep hanging out with the football guys or at lunch or basketball practice. And when the football guys and the jocks would be making fun of me, he would be making fun of me, jumping right on the bandwagon with them. So you can imagine what that did to me. And I looked up to this guy. So I've got him, one time over here on my side, and over here he's making fun of me. So I understand what it feels like to be called names and to have stuff that's said about me. But what I had to learn to realize is that's not who I am. It doesn't matter what those people say about me. And it took me a while. I used to be really, really depressed. I was never suicidal, thank God. But it wasn't easy. So I just want you guys to know that I understand what it's like to go through hard times and to not be the cool kid or whatever. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. What matters? Do you want to impress somebody now here, or you want to impress the person that has a say in your eternity? So a lot of times people think that when we die here that it's all black. But what happens if after you die in this life, and this life is over, what if that's when life really begins? What if after I die in this life, I feel more alive than ever? Wouldn't that make you want to live a little bit differently? Knowing that your eternity, living with the Father or away from the Father. Because after this life is eternity, it's forever. And we can't understand that because we are on a time base. Everything is by time. What time I got to be here, how long is it going to last? He only lived 75 years, or he was 35 when he died. He was young. But what if it was that he was really being born? That's when he was truly alive. So, before I go on, I'm going to play another song. First, I'm going to need somebody's help. Who wants to? All right. This song is called Mirrors. I want you guys to pay attention to it best you can. And, yeah.
Maybe closer than they appear.
You ever noticed about how on the passenger side mirror on cars it says objects in the mirror are closer than they appear? You know why that is? Anybody? It's because that mirror is curved a little bit. You can't really tell when you look at it, but it's curved just a hair like this. So that it gives you a wider viewing angle so you can see stuff further out the other side. But in doing that, it distorts the image that you see, and it makes it look like it's what it's not. And the first verse of that song says, objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. The curves warp the source and create the illusion of change. View different angles, the input remains, but the output's not the same. And so, what that's saying is, like when you're in a car, what you're seeing in the mirror is not an accurate representation of what's actually there. And the curve of the mirror warps the source, meaning the original thing. The input remains, meaning the object that you're seeing in the mirror, the actual object, it remains the way it is. The input, because that's what's going into the mirror, the input remains, but the output's not the same. What you're seeing, what comes out of the mirror, the reflection you see, isn't the same. Have any of you ever stood in front of those mirrors that's wavy, or maybe you stand in front of you could even stand in front of this door handle over here and probably see your reflection, but if you look at it and you see your reflection, it's not going to look like what you're used to seeing when you look in the mirror, right? People change, but God doesn't change. And so many times, we base our lives and how cool we are and what we're doing off of what other people say about us. And we try to be like other people. But what if I'm trying to be like Cody, well then what, Cody might change, or if I'm trying to be like Cody, well what if Cody's trying to be like Lindsay? And Lindsay's trying to be like Kevin, or David, whatever you all call him, trying to be like him, then what does that have? All of a sudden I'm trying to be like all of these different people, and these people are changing. We all change. You can all agree. I think it's safe to say we can all agree that as we grow up, we change. Yes? Okay. So I don't think it's smart for us to try to model our lives off of somebody else that's changing. And it's not a good representation or an accurate thing to do to base my life, what I do, my identity, who I am, off of something that changes. It's like trying to fix your hair in a mirror that's not straight. You're not getting a good representation of what's happening there. In order to get a good representation of what's happening, you got to look in a mirror that's straight, that's flat, that is the same all across the entire thing. Where I'm going with this is that we should be basing our lives and what we do, who we are, and how we see ourselves off of something that never changes. God never changes. The Bible says He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So that means that if I try to be like Jesus, I'm never going to have to worry about Him changing. If He says He loves me, and that I'm beautiful, and that I'm a child of God, I don't have to worry about my reflection and who I am changing based on that. Based on what He says about me, it will never change. And on top of that, if we're supposed to be like Christ and be disciples, what's a disciple? Anybody know what a disciple is? A disciple would be saying that I minister to Cody, or I pour into Cody, and let's take it away, not even make it about Christianity. Let's say that I'm a lumberjack. I feel like I kind of look like that sometimes. Let's say I'm a lumberjack, okay? And so this is a skilled trade that I have to learn, and I teach Cody how to be a lumberjack. And then he teaches Lindsay how to be a lumberjack. I've just made a disciple out of Cody. Because I poured into Cody, and he poured into somebody else. And then if Lindsay goes and starts teaching Kevin, Bruce, how to be a lumberjack, now Lindsay is Cody's disciple. Jesus called us to be disciples. And so in order to do that, we got to have something to look at and somebody to learn from. And so if we are supposed to be disciples and pour into other people, then we need to model ourselves after something that's the same, that never changes. Otherwise, that's just like me trying to be like one person that's trying to be like somebody else and never ends the same. Does that make sense? You guys understand where I'm going with this? And so we need to seek to reflect God. Because people are looking for answers. You guys know that. You're all looking for answers. Everybody's looking for answers. You're going through time and you're growing up, you're not sure what's going on around you. You got all the cliques at school, you got the cheerleaders, you got the band people, you got the nerds. I don't know if you guys still have the goth kids. You got the jocks, you got the teachers' pets, you got the kids that really don't know what's going on, they don't know who they are. You got the people that sit in the corner by themselves. Am I right about all this stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah? It's been almost 7 years since I graduated from high school, and it's still the same. So, I mean, I know I think this maybe help you guys understand that I do know what I'm talking about, even though I might be a lot older than you guys. And so, in order for us to try to be like God, we first have to believe that He is who He says He is. So how do we do that? It's through faith. What is faith? Hebrews 11:1 says, now faith is the substance or the assurance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And basically this is saying, you know it's there, you see evidence of it being there, but you don't know for sure. You've never actually seen it. So for you guys to know that I have a brain, it takes faith. It takes faith. Because, you know, I'm pretty sure we all hope that I have a brain first off. And there's evidence of me having a brain. Because I'm living, I'm moving around, all of this happens from a brain. But none of you guys have ever actually seen it. And so for you to say and believe that I have a brain takes faith, because you've not seen it. It's the same thing with God. We've never actually seen God. But there's substance of it. We hope there is. I mean, what good is our life? What do we have to live for if we don't have a hope of that? First off, and second off, it says the evidence of things not seen. We don't see it, but there's evidence all over the place, man. I mean, it's like saying, you know, people believe in evolution or say, oh, there's not a creator. That's like me saying that building out there built itself. Or that there was a pile of rocks and wood out there, and over millions and billions of years, it just kind of formed itself. You guys ever seen a building that sits out in the field that's been there for a long time that hasn't gotten touched?
Yeah.
Does it get better?
No, it falls apart.
It falls apart. Have you ever seen a building that built itself?
Yes.
I would like to see that building.
Transformer.
Okay, well, where did the transformer come from?
And
Had a creator, didn't it?
yeah.
Everything's got a creator. And so there's your evidence right there. So we hope there's a God, we hope there's something out there, and we see evidence of it all around. So when we believe it, there's faith. And once we have the faith that God is real, and that we have the faith to believe that He is who He says He is, then we have something to model our lives after. All right, now toss me that ball again. Did you know that I was going to ask you to do that earlier?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How'd you know?
Because you're not just going to give me a ball.
But did I tell you that?
No.
No. You had the faith that I was going to, but you never knew. Right?
Yeah.
I just gave you the ball. I said, hey, somebody want to hold this? And I tossed it to you. That was it. I could have asked you to roll it to me. I could have come picked it up out of your hand. I could have asked you to hand it over to him.
Yeah.
You didn't know what I was going to do. But did it matter?
No.
Exactly. It didn't matter. Sometimes God will tell us to do stuff, and we don't understand it. You might not have understood why I tossed him the ball and said, hold on to this. But it didn't matter, because he trusted and had faith that I had a reason for it. And you know, there are times in our life that God's going to tell us to do stuff, and we don't understand it, and we don't have all the answers. But we just got to trust God and have faith. And let me tell you something now, and teach you something now that I learned at 24 years old. I wish somebody had told me this 20 years ago. You guys paying attention? Everybody listening?
Yeah, I'm just stuck in my box.
You will never have all of the answers. You can ask God as much as you want, You can ask God as much as you want. You can pray for all of the answers all of you want. But God will never give you all of the answers. God will never give you all of the answers. Because if you had all the answers, you would have no need to rely on Him. We have to rely on God. We can't live without Him. If He gave us all the answers, we could. And that defies who God is. So it's better just to know and realize now that you're never going to have all the answers. And be okay with that. Trust God and have faith that He's going to take care of you. He's a good God. He makes promises. He's perfect. His promise never fails. He never fails. And so if He tells you He's going to do something, He will. The Bible talks about, that He feeds the animals close to the field. How much more does He care about you? If He makes sure that nature is taken care of, how much more does He care about you, children of God? And before we go any further, I want you, there's a video here I want you guys to watch. You have that, is it ready? I want you guys to watch this video. It's a little bit long, but...
Space bar. Here's the...
Yeah, it's on the left side of the back. It's space bar real quick.
Oh no.
Austin.
It's on.
Austin and Kaden, stop.
Hey guys, a little bit longer, okay?
Sit up.
Ready? He's
Yeah.
wrapping up. Watch this video.
Okay.
This is gonna blow your mind.
Cards in our poker hand with Pastor Rick Warren. Chemistry, connections, circumstances, and consciousness. All hands you are dealt. Okay. You say
Hey,
the
David, we
card
do not-
makes or breaks your entire hand. What do you think it is? Very good.
Yes, smart group.
Smart group. Choices.
Choices are the wild card. And the wild card can change the suit and the number of any other card. So I may have been dealt certain things in my chemistry, and certain things in my connections, and certain things in my circumstances, and things I didn't even control, and things that people said to me that were put into my mind, changed. But one of the greatest gifts God gave us was the gift of free choice. So I didn't choose my chemistry, but I didn't choose to get healthier.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't choose my first connection, but I can choose to build healthy relationships now. I didn't choose my circumstances, but I can pray and I can trust God and I believe that all things work together for good for those who love God.
Yes.
And I believe I can rise above it. And I didn't choose what everybody told me growing up. The things that I was told about myself. And some of the things we were told were simple lies. But I can't choose what I think about today.
Right. That's your choice.
Yeah. So the choices of life really is the wild card where God says, now I've given you this, let's see, what are you going to do with what you've been given?
Okay, so I'm looking at Facebook. Angela Ramsey Lockhart says, I always feel judged. I feel the very things that make me who I am are the reasons people look at me differently. Feel like a square peg trying to fit in a round hole. And then I look at Brooke underneath who says, feeling like I'm less than others due to my parents never being in my life. Okay, so let me just say to all of you on Facebook right now, to everybody who has a complaint on the tip of your tongue, I want you just to shut your mouth and watch this tape, because Pastor Rick had one request for tonight's show, to include a man who he says is one of the best examples of winning the hand you're dealt. This is going to shut your mouth. Just going to shut your mouth. Just close it right now. Take a look at this.
Born in Australia without arms or legs, 30-year-old Nick Vujicic has become a symbol of triumph against all odds. His inspiring YouTube videos have been watched over 100 million times.
It's a lie to think that you're not good enough. It's a lie to think that you're not worth anything.
But the road to self-acceptance was excruciating for Nick. For years, he was harassed and tormented at school. When he was 10, Nick attempted suicide. After After years of feeling worthless and alone, Nick's awakening came while reading an article about a disabled man who refused to let physical limitations hold him back. In that moment, Nick says he discovered the power to take control of his life, and he has. Today, Nick surfs, he snorkels, he golfs, and plays soccer. He's traveled to 44 countries with his message of hope.
Even the worst part of your life can come together for the good.
And less than a year ago, Nick married the love of his life and danced at their wedding.
Tonight, Sarah and Nick. We're standing up for Nick. Now, this is what's so unbelievable. As you've heard, people complain about the spots on their face, and people complain about not having a boyfriend and not being able to have the mates of their life. What happened to you that you were able to take your chemistry, being born with no arms and no legs, take your connections, your relationships, your life circumstances, your state of consciousness, and then make the conscious choice that you were going to take all of that which the rest of the world looks at, undeniably as a pretty bad hand, and that you were going to turn it into something you were going to be exalted by it. What happened to you that you were able to do that?
Oprah, I know that you love to think out of the box and have things outside of the box in your show. And I know that you love illustration. So if I may illustrate in about 180 seconds, can I do something a little crazy but really powerful? Is that cool? You got a camera behind you, right? I'm going to show you. Come. This set right here is enough light here. The chemistry. I was born without arms and legs. The chemistry I could not change in my life. I know that God didn't give me this pain, but what the enemy tried to use for bad, he turned it to good. The connections. I want to tell Porsche. Look, I'm the guy, I love cars, okay? And I love Porsches more than Ferraris, okay? And I want everyone to know that we are wonderfully and fearfully made. And until you can actually understand that we are all wonderfully and fearfully made from God, I want you to know that you will always be trapped and chained and you will be stopped. But when you have the incredible power of faith in action, nothing holds you back. And you're beautiful just the way that you are. No worries. For me, I felt the connection. For me, in my life, I'm thinking, man, I'm not going to get married. I can't, kind of hold my wife's hand. What connection am I going to have? But you know what? All things come together for the good for those who love Him. This is a little bit high. I'm going to break my arm, man. This is pretty crazy. All right? I'm going to break my arm. Circumstances. Being born without arms and legs, man, is all about choice. When you asked me what it was, I had parents who were my heroes. They always said, you can either be angry for what you don't have or be thankful for what you do have. Do your best and God will do the rest. And consciousness, because I gave my life to Lord Jesus Christ and the renewing of my mind, I knew that I could be unstoppable.
She was worried about whether she was intimidating guys or how she going to find the right man. I'm sure a lot of you have that story about I can't find the right person. What made you believe that you were going to find the love of your life? And I hear that your wife is now pregnant.
We have a boy. I never imagined in my whole life that I would ever find someone who truly completes me as a kid. I really thought that I had no purpose. There is no meaning to my life. If I'm just going to have pain in my life, then why continue to go on? But I just want you to...
Is that what you were thinking at 10 when you wanted to kill yourself?
Yeah, because I actually put my hope in, as some other people put hopes in different things, and I wish my circumstance was different, I wish I was born different.
And what other people think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, my life as a kid, I'm thinking, man, I'm going to be a burden to my parents. I'm not going to have a job. I'm not going to have a future. And I'm like, man, I'm just going to kill myself. So I'm trying to drown myself. And by the grace of God, parents, I want you to know something very, very important. If it wasn't for my parents, my heroes, who planted those seeds of love and truth and hope in my life, I wouldn't be here today. When your teenager hears you say you're beautiful and they put a do not disturb sign on their door, do you know what I'm talking about? I want you to know to respect that, but go through their window. In my life, I wanted something more. Even if I had arms and legs and all, or I was the richest person on earth, I had a billionaire come up to me and cry on my shoulder and say, help me. My 14-year-old daughter was called out of their school. She doesn't eat. She won't eat. She's in hospital. Make her eat. Hope itself, not just for this life, but the next. You want to know why I'm happy and content, full of joy? Is knowing that no matter what 5 cards come up in my life, as long as that 5th choice is understanding by faith that my Heavenly Father owns all the chips in the poker game. So no matter what we have, we're playing with God's chips. For me in my life, I know that people need hope. And what we're looking for, money, drugs, sex, alcohol, a different circumstance, a new relationship, or if I just was wired differently, no. Stop looking everywhere and just look up.
Alright, so I think it's pretty easy, pretty safe to say our circumstances are all a little bit better than you think that these are, right? One with no arms, no legs. Can you imagine that? I'm a little worried about it. People think our hair looks cool, or whether you got the newest pair of jeans, or the newest kicks, new shoes, whatever it is. And what he's saying here is all these things, like we all have circumstances, different things in our lives that we can't control. But we do have the control to choose what we do. We have a choice to make of how we're going to let that affect our lives and what we're going to do with it. And once we realize that, and once we believe that our identity is that we're children of God, and that we choose to live like that, then we will be living in freedom and in truth. And I don't want you guys to think it's something that happens overnight. It's a gradual process. The Bible says to take up your cross daily and follow Him. His mercies are new every morning. It's not, you're never going to get it, guys. You're never going to have all the answers. Like I said, you're never going to get it all. Remember why obey God? A child who obeys her parents for the right reasons does so because they love their parents. And Jesus said in John 14:15, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. And like that song Mirrors, at the end it says, love God, love people is what it's about. And in Matthew 22, one of the Pharisees, he heard a question that silenced all the Sadducees. They came together. One of them, who was a lawyer, asked Jesus a question to test him. And he said, Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law? And they're referring to the 2 commandments. And Jesus said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments depend all the law and the prophets. And so, if we love God with every part of us, we'll obey Him. And then, if we love our neighbor as ourselves, want the best for yourself, right? You should. So if you love your neighbor is anybody else, it's not you. It's not just somebody that lives next to you or lives in your neighborhood. And if you really love them, you will honor them, you will respect them. And I want you guys to, a lot of times people think, say, oh, Jesus doesn't understand, God, He doesn't understand, He doesn't know what I mean, what I'm going through. The Bible says that He was tempted in every way. And you know what? Some of you, I don't know what your home life's like. It's sad to me. It breaks my heart. People's parents, they grow up in split homes. Parents get divorced. They have